Nick, climate is the first individual area of interest strategy that Monroe has launched. Why is it so important to launch an individual fund for this theme?
Yeah, so look, if we could go back to 2005 and launch an internet fund, we would. But our employer at the time wouldn't let us do it, and we had these great ideas. And I think what sort of became clear to us over the 15 years, the ideas that we came up with around digitalisation, generally came true. Following that trend for 15 years was, effectively underwrote my funds management career. When we sit here to now and look at the decarbonisation agenda, as we just said, it's right at the start. So it's the obvious time to launch a standalone fund, because it's the time when you need to be doing all the work, to be learning as much as you can about it, to really get on top of these big sub-trends, these big different areas of decarbonisation, and really work your way towards those few winners. So now's the perfect time to be doing the work. And the work that we do on this fund will obviously help us in the main funds also. There is one other last reason why you want to do this, and really because and this is something unique to climate, in the fact that it is a topic that people are passionate about, quite frankly. People are passionate about the decarbonisation of the planet, and they can use their capital. If they allocate capital to this product will allocate capital to the enablers of decarbonisation, which will help decarbonisation happen faster. And so it has that dual objective of what we look for in capitalism, which is to find great businesses that are solving great problems, and now's the time to find them, as I said. But secondly, if you give capital to this product, it will help them solve it faster.
And James, how does this product differ to other climate products out there, and what are the advantages of it?
Yeah, so look, the key thing for us is, Nick mentioned the enablisation of the decarbonisation of the planet. So we're really looking for the companies that are not necessarily the great ESG scored companies because they have great sort of social or governance structures within the business. We're really focused on the E, and those that are basically assisting the world basically decarbonise. So the key focus for us is on those companies that are generating at least half their profits and half their revenues from these technologies, be it clean transport, clean power, waste, etc., water. That we're really looking for the actual businesses that are solving these issues, not just the companies that are performing well from an ESG sort of perspective, more broadly.
And Nick, how does the climate strategy differ from Monroe's other products, like the long short or the long only?
So the strategy differs in the fact that it's a long only product. So it doesn't have the ability to short. It has no capital protection tools. The second thing about the strategy is that it's very concentrated. So it's just 15 to 25 ideas globally. It is just our highest conviction, best enablers of decarbonisation. And lastly, I suppose people should think of it, not as a replacement for a global equity product. They should think of it as a way of dialing up this thematic bet. It's more a thematic product, and you can dial up the thematic bet through the Monroe Climate Leaders Fund.
And James, what is the climate investment process, given that there are exclusions?
Yeah, so it's the same as our normal investment process, which people have probably heard about in the past. With this fund, we do have some exclusions around some of the fossil fuel areas like tar sands and so forth. But really for this fund, as I sort of just mentioned, we're really looking for companies that are generating at least half their revenues from decarbonisation. So the key thing is the company doesn't have to be perfect today, but it needs to have that transition, that path to transition in line with effectively the goals that we need to set out to hit the 1.5 degrees temperature rise as set out at Paris. And so we can invest in companies that do have some fossil fuel exposure today, but they need to be moving at an adequate pace to basically replace that with renewables as an example. And so that's the key thing for us. It's really the companies that are enabling this transition, as I mentioned earlier, not necessarily the ones that are perfect today.
And what are the 4 sub-areas of interest within the fund?
Yeah, great. So we have clean energy. And so these are the companies that are involved in deploying solar, wind, offshore wind, batteries, etc. We have circular economy. So these are the companies that are helping us reuse and use the scarce resources we have in the world today. So these can be companies involved in plastic recycling, aluminium recycling, agriculture, scarce agricultural land, as examples, water as well. We have clean transport. So that's the EV companies. Companies involved in the EV supply chains, batteries companies that go into the EVs, etc. And the last one is the energy efficiency companies as well. So people that are making buildings like this one more efficient and therefore have a lower carbon footprint in the first place. And that's actually the biggest area of spend in terms of where we expect the 50 trillion to be spent over the next 30 years, that's actually going to be about a quarter of the spend. And it's probably one that's a little overlooked. So it's just insulation companies, lighting companies, heating companies, etc., to help us basically use less in the first place. So those are the four key areas we're looking at.
And Nick, do you see any other areas of interest emerging in the future?
The one we've done more work on recently is agriculture. Agriculture clearly has a role to play here. It's one of the biggest emitters, but it's also one of the best ways we can lower emissions globally. We see agriculture with a key role to play in things like biofuels. We see agriculture with a key role to play in things like carbon sequestration or carbon credits. And we see agriculture, yield advancements as a key role to play in, reducing the crop nutrients that we use globally. And so that, for a market that's previously been quite cyclical, we definitely do see a big structural opportunity here in agriculture, and it definitely is an emerging sub-trend for us today.
Can you tell us about the Monroe Climate Change Leaders Fund?
Yeah, so the Monroe Climate Change Leaders Fund is our thematic product that is designed to invest in companies that will help enable the decarbonisation of the economy. And so what we think is, as we said, is we think it's going to cost roughly $50 trillion to decarbonise the planet. That's $50 trillion in revenue for the companies that help enable that decarbonisation. And our job is to really find those 15 to 25 ideas that will sit in this fund that will help enable that decarbonisation, because that will equal revenue for them, which will equal earnings, which will equal share price growth. It is a very concentrated product, so it's just 15 to 25 ideas. It's a long-only product, so it's fully invested at all times, and it's completely currency unhedged.